Hi, how you doing? For those of you that have been unhappy with the audio of my recent videos, no, I agree with you wholeheartedly. Got a slightly different setup today. Firstly, I spent the whole day taking everything I own to the tip, so I've cleared out some space in the garage. Been able to throw up a screen and clear a little bit of space. Still not great, but we're getting there. I need to get rid of a bit more of my stuff, a bit more space, and then we'll be fine. But what that should mean is that I can record in a dedicated place that doesn't have a nasty echo, which the gym where I record the technical stuff that I do does, sadly. There's a little bit more background noise here, but I'll filter that out with Audacity and see how we get on with that. I've also got a directional mic on the camera now. It's an external mic, so hopefully that'll improve things slightly. This video specifically is in reply to a question that I was asked quite recently. I figured what I'd do is I'd read you the question. It's B Martinets 99. I don't think I know you, but it's possible that we're friends on Facebook. I don't know. The question is, do you have any advice for a high schooler on a tight budget trying to start a Hema club at his school and to turn his channel into a martial arts channel? Well, two very different questions there. The first and probably the quickest one that I'll deal with is, how do you turn your channel into a martial arts channel? Well, I'm probably not the right person to ask, to be honest. I still feel very much a beginner when it comes to YouTube and developing a channel. In the grand scheme of things, I've got very few subscribers. We're not even at 3,000 yet. But if you want my advice, for what it's worth, what I'd say is, if martial arts is what interests you, then make videos about it. And if it interests you, it almost certainly interests someone else. And as long as you're honest and genuine, then go for it. I haven't actually checked out your channel yet. I'll do that later and stick something in the comments. I'll message you. But what I tend to find is, as long as you're presenting it in a way that people can access, so as long as the video quality is good, you won't get people complaining about that. As long as the audio is good, you won't get people complaining about that. I'm struggling very much with that. I have done from the beginning. I don't realise that, but I started off making videos with just my mobile phone, and they developed a bit of interest. Obviously, as time's gone on, I've upped the equipment. I'm now using a DSLR as of today with a nice external mic on it. I've got some lighting, which helps a lot. But there's all sorts of things you do. You don't need to spend any money. Just make some videos. Talk about what you like talking about. Video you and your friends or your training partners looking at techniques, and get it out there. And when you do, let me know. And I'll quite happily enter into a bit of a discussion. If some of the people that are subscribed to me are interested in what you do, brilliant. Go for it. And that goes to anybody. If you're making videos and you think I might be interested in them, do let me know. Because I'm more and more thinking of YouTube as a social network, and Facebook's a bit. Do you know what? I don't like it. It's a great place for marketing, but I don't actually like it. It's very difficult to interact with people. But with YouTube, with videos, linking things together, I think that's a lot more fun. So if you're making videos and you think I'm interested, do let me know, and we'll have a look. We'll have a chat, and if we can exchange some videos, when I've entered into conversations and we've had video replies to people in the past, that's kind of been my favourite things. I think it's great to stimulate debate, and you learn a lot from other people doing that. But on the same token, so how do you start a Hema school, a Hema club, if you are on a tight budget? Well, the thing to say is that you don't actually need any money to take up Hema. When I started this, I managed to get hold of a hard copy, and this was back in the days when the internet was very new and shiny, and there wasn't an awful lot going on. There were some bulletin boards, and there were a couple of guys over in the States who were doing a Hema as well. It wasn't called Hema then. It was just called, I don't know, historical swordsmanship or Western martial arts, maybe. I don't even know if Western martial arts was the term. But anyway, all you need is a source. We didn't have training swords to start off with. We used sticks. You can cut a stick outside. You can use a broom handle. Doesn't matter. Anything will do to get you going. Look at the source material and experiment. See what they're saying. See if you can recreate it and see if it works. Now, you do have to be very careful. Because if you're not spending money on safety equipment, then obviously safety needs to be a prime concern. So you need to be very careful with what you're doing. You can approach the sports fencing clubs in the area and see if they've got any old masks that aren't quite up to standard for what they're doing. A mask needs to be in much better condition to stop a broken fencing foil or épée from punching a hole through it than it does to stop a broomstick smashing your nose. So it's possible that masks that they're no longer willing to use, they may be able to pass on to you. Certainly worth a conversation. But the thing I would suggest the most is if you can in any way get along to somebody that's been doing Hema before, then do. You don't need to. The guys like me, first generation Hema instructors, we learned this from source material. And that's one of the things that kind of defines Hema, is that it's a martial art that's created from a source material. So there's nothing to stop you doing exactly the same. But what you need to bear in mind is that we made a lot of mistakes, and it took an awfully long time to get to the point where we were doing something that was both reliably good and also effective. And you can shortcut that process massively by going and training with somebody who's already established. Now, it may well be that there is nobody in your area, and it's not really a surprise if that's the case. Hema's still relatively new and it's still relatively small. So there are large pockets in the UK and across the States where there are no people teaching Hema. And if that's the case, then find somebody that you can get to occasionally and go and train with them once a month, once every 2 months, once every 6 months. Whatever you can do, do it, because it will improve your Hema, even if you're only getting one class every 6 months. Try and get to some of the big events. If you're in the UK, get to Fight Camp. You'll have a wealth of instructors at Fight Camp. There are people like myself teaching unarmed stuff. I took the recent Fight Camp, I taught a class on classical pugilism, and I taught a class on Elizabethan backsword. There were people teaching military sabre, there were people teaching Bowie knife, there were people teaching French wrestling, German wrestling, longsword, all sorts. It was all there, and you can get along and you can learn a phenomenal amount of these. The other thing to say is there's a lot of information on YouTube. There's some stuff on my channel. There are other channels out there. It's well worth searching and seeing what there is. It's a good idea, whatever you decide to do, whichever source you take, whichever path you take, whether you go and train with somebody, that's brilliant. If you're only going to train with somebody occasionally, then develop a bit of a relationship with them. If you find something on YouTube that you think is worthwhile, get their opinion on it. You might not agree with them, but it's well worth bouncing that backwards and forwards. There are a couple of guys on Facebook who I chat to on a regular basis. I've never met them, but we share an interest, and they've come to me with questions about what they're doing, and I'm quite happy to offer my opinion on it and talk them through my interpretation as it relates to what they're saying. And most Hema instructors are like that. If you find somebody and they're not really like that, don't worry about it. Find someone else. There's enough of us out there, and the internet has made the world a small enough place that you can kind of pick and choose. The other thing to say is that there are people like me who are recording tutorial videos and putting them online specifically for people like you who want to learn Hema but don't have someone that you can learn it from to learn Hema. Now, if you're on a tight budget, that might not work. Some of them are relatively cheap, some of them are more expensive. It's not just me. There's a couple of guys out there doing Bolognese swordsmanship and German longsword and various other things. So there's a lot of information out there. But the most important thing, if you want to train in Hema, is train in Hema. Get out there, give it a go, swing a stick or a sword if you can afford it, and see how it goes. Bear in mind, in almost every instance of somebody setting up a Hema club, it's taken a long time to become a successful club. You look at clubs like my English Martial Arts Academy club in Guildford. That's been going 6 or 7 years now, and I effectively funded that out of my own pocket for 18 months. It took a long time to get to the point where it was breaking even. The same for all the other major clubs. Initially, you need somebody to drive the club. And it may well be that you're not an instructor, but you provide the driving force behind the club. You make things happen. And that's the role you've got to take on. And you can always find somewhere cheap or free to train. I started off training outside, so did a lot of other people. Train outside. Doesn't matter. Go to the park. If you're in the UK, go to the village green. Go out wherever there's a space. For a while, we trained in a kind of grassy water meadow just outside the police station. And every now and again, the police would wander over and go, "What are you doing?" And we'd explain it, and they'd go, "Oh, that's interesting," and wander off. It's not an issue, as long as you're able to do it. As long as you're able to demonstrate that you're doing something serious and proper, and what you're teaching or learning or practicing is a valid system. However, it's worth checking some of the local laws. In the UK, the Offensive Weapons Act is a bit vague, and it's purposefully a bit vague, because it allows the legal system to punish people who have done bad things, even if they've not been using offensive weapons. If I hit you in the face with a walking stick, then I can be prosecuted for using an offensive weapon. If I walk down the street carrying a sharp sword, as long as I'm doing it safely and in a way that's non-threatening and it's not likely to cause anybody any harm, and I have a valid reason for having that sword, that's perfectly acceptable. And that's something to bear in mind. If you're not well established within the martial arts or the Hema community, it's well worth finding a governing body, finding an umbrella organisation, something like the British Federation for Historical Swordplay in the UK, or the British Combat Association, or the Hema Alliance if you're in the UK, or whoever it is. Get yourself and your club registered with them, and what that gives you is a little bit of credibility. So if there are any issues with the law, if people come along and say, "What are you doing waving these weapons around?" you can say, "This is what we do, this is who we are, we're part of this organisation, go check it out, it's perfectly valid." And I think that's very important to do. You need to make sure that you're covering yourself. You don't want to get in trouble with the law, you don't want to get prosecuted, you don't want to get sued if you've done something wrong. So getting insurance for the club is probably your first big priority. When it's more than just you and a friend or two messing around, you need to start looking into that. But there are lots of options for that, and it doesn't have to be expensive. But the most important thing, if you want to set up a Hema club, get your mates together, go and train. That's all you need to do. Anyway, as ever, I've been wittering on for quite a long time now, so I'll shut up, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.